Ever found yourself being a little more aggressive than Sigma? You're not a loudmouth bully like the alphas, but there's something darker simmering beneath your controlled surface. You border on devilishness, walking the razor's edge between civilization and something more primal. When traditional alphas collapse under the weight of their own noise and performance, you emerge from the shadows. You are the modern face of alpha evolution, refined by discipline and sharpened by solitude. You are Spartan-focused, built for endurance rather than display. Where others gather in packs for validation, you operate as a true lone wolf, not by social rejection, but by conscious choice. Your aggression doesn't announce itself with chest-beating theatrics. It waits, calculating, until the moment demands precision over volume. This is the hierarchy they don't want to acknowledge. Beneath the surface of accepted male archetypes, like alpha-beta system, lies something more dangerous, more refined, more uncompromising. You've taken the alpha's strength, stripped away his desperate need for attention, and forged something harder. What follows are 6 territories where your nature outranks every other male archetype. These aren't comfortable truths wrapped in diplomatic language. This is the raw analysis of power in its most concentrated form. Welcome to the emergence of the Zeta. Chapter 1. The Assertive Edge. The Alpha roars. His aggression is a thunderclap, impossible to ignore, shaking the room. It serves its purpose. Immediate dominance, a territory marked. But it's blunt. It expends energy recklessly, revealing its hand entirely, leaving little in reserve. The battlefield after an alpha storm is often littered with unintended debris and simmering resentments he failed to foresee. His power is magnificent, undeniable, but tragically inefficient. Do you ever wonder why some men command rooms, while others merely occupy them? You've witnessed it countless times. The meeting where everyone defers to one voice, gathering where conversations orbit around a single presence. Most people assume this magnetism belongs exclusively to the classic alpha, the chest-thumping leader who demands attention through volume and dominance. But they're missing something crucial, something that would unsettle their neat categories. As a Zeta, you possess a different kind of assertiveness, one that cuts deeper than the alpha's theatrical displays. Where the alpha broadcasts his power, like a radio tower, hoping everyone tunes in, you operate like a focused laser. Your assertiveness doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It simply exists, undeniable and precise. Consider the wolf pack dynamic that everyone misunderstands. The alpha wolf myth has been debunked by the very scientist who coined it, yet people cling to this Hollywood version of leadership. Real wolves follow experienced leaders who guide through competence, not aggression. You embody this authentic leadership, the kind that doesn't need validation or constant reinforcement. Your assertiveness manifests in moments others miss. When the room falls silent after your quiet observation that dismantles a flawed argument. When your simple no carries more weight than another man's elaborate justifications. When you walk away from situations that drain your energy, while others remain trapped by social expectations or their need to prove something. Possessiveness stems from insecurity, a desperate clutching at what might slip away. Your version operates from abundance. You're possessive of your time, your energy, your standards, not because you fear loss, but because you understand value. You don't hoard relationships or opportunities out of scarcity. You curate them from a position of choice. Wondered what separates a volatile reaction from a strategic blow? Picture a chess master who sacrifices a pawn to corner a king. This is your model. Unchecked anger fractures kingdoms, misguided possession builds prisons, but calculated force shatters barriers and forges empires. This creates a paradox that confuses the conventional hierarchy. Your quiet certainty often trumps loud confidence. Your selective engagement commands more respect than constant availability. You've discovered what the Stoics knew. True power whispers. Chapter 2. The Patient Inferno. Have you ever felt the heat rise, that primal urge to strike back instantly when crossed? Most do, The alpha certainly does. His anger is a volcano. Spectacular, immediate, and devastatingly indiscriminate. It erupts, consumes everything nearby, and leaves him exposed. His resources spent, his strategy ash. It feels powerful in the moment, a raw assertion of self. But it's a fire that burns the archer, the omega. He might swallow the spark, letting it smolder internally until it consumes him, turning to bitterness or silent despair. His control is often suppression, not mastery. You, the Zeta, understand something deeper. True power resides not in the explosion, but in the controlled burn. Your ability to master anger isn't about denying the flame. It's about containing it. Like a master blacksmith, you take the white-hot fury and forge it into something purposeful. You don't let it rule you, you rule it. Seneca, the Stoic giant, saw anger as brief insanity. You refuse the insanity. You feel the insult, the betrayal, the challenge. You register it with crystal clarity, but you don't react. You observe. This isn't weakness. It's supreme tactical discipline. Think of ancient Sparta. They didn't charge wildly at the first taunt. They trained relentlessly, planned meticulously, and chose the perfect ground, the perfect moment to unleash their phalanx with devastating, coordinated force. Your anger becomes intelligence. That person who slighted you, that rival who undermined you, you see them not just as adversaries, but as problems to be solved. You file the transgression away, coolly assessing their motives, their patterns, their vulnerabilities. Like Sun Tzu advised, know your enemy. You gather information. You wait. You let them feel safe, perhaps even grow complacent in the false belief that your silence equals submission or ignorance. It is not that Zetas don't react upon disrespect. Patience is actually more of a Sigma trait than Zeta. They are more aggressive than the Sigmas. Zetas are more likely to strike twice, as Sigmas hold their horses and plan. Some situations demand immediate response, and your tendency to strategize can occasionally cost you opportunities that required swift action. Zetas draw the perfect balance. This waiting is the crucible. It requires the stoic resolve of Epictetus, bear and forbear. It demands immense inner strength to watch provocations go seemingly unanswered. But this patience is your weapon. While the alpha's rage fizzles, leaving him spent, your contained fury fuels a cold, relentless engine of calculation. You plan not just for retaliation, but for resolution. You aim not merely to wound, but to dismantle the threat at its foundation, ensuring it cannot rise again. Your eventual action, when it comes, isn't a chaotic outburst. It's a surgical strike, precise, overwhelming, and often appearing from a direction they never anticipated. It carries the terrifying weight of inevitability. The world sees the alpha's loud, messy fight. They rarely see the Zeta's silent, decisive victory until it's complete. You understand, the inferno contained and directed burns longer, hotter, and destroys far more completely than the fleeting wildfire. Your greatest weapon is the time your enemies think you aren't using the inferno altogether. Chapter 3. Indifference. They maybe don't need to publicly masturbate like Diogenes, but the confidence is through the roof, and base of this confidence is indifference. Wait, let me explain. Before that, I must say, I really appreciate you guys for what you do for this channel. Thanks for the love. Now, let's go deeper. What if I told you that the most powerful position in any room is occupied by the person who needs nothing from it? You've developed something that public speakers spend years trying to cultivate: genuine indifference to external validation. While the alpha feeds on crowd energy, like a vampire needs blood, you've discovered the freedom that comes from internal scoreboards. This isn't numbness or emotional detachment, it's selective immunity. The explosions are simply data, loud, dangerous, but irrelevant to the orders being given. Their anger or mockery simply doesn't penetrate the fortress of your purpose. This creates an almost unnerving presence. People expect a reaction: fear, anger, defensiveness. Your calm, unbroken focus unsettles them far more deeply. It radiates a quiet, terrifying authority. It says, your attempts to move me are futile. I operate on a different plane. You are not armored against the world, you are fortified within. Watch how others react when facing criticism or public confrontation. Their pupils dilate, their breathing changes, their entire nervous system shifts into fight or flight mode. You remain eerily steady, not because you don't hear the words, but because you've calibrated your response system to filter signal from noise. Most human communication is noise. The Stoic concept of preferred indifference applies perfectly. Taught that external opinions exist outside your control, you've internalized this lesson without needing his harsh circumstances. When someone attacks you verbally, you don't experience it as an attack on your identity. You process it as information about their internal state. This creates a disturbing effect for your opponents. They expect to wound you, to see some crack in your composure that validates their effort. Instead, they encounter something like bulletproof glass, transparent but impenetrable. Their words pass through without leaving marks. This often enrages them further, exposing their true motivations and making them increasingly irrational. Your indifference to public opinion translates into superior public speaking because you're not performing for approval. You're communicating information. The alpha's charisma often crumbles under pressure because it depends on audience feedback. Your presence remains constant because it originates from internal certainty rather than external validation. But here's the paradox. Your indifference to their opinion makes them more interested in earning it. People are magnetically drawn to those who don't seem to need them. Your immunity becomes influence. Your detachment becomes attraction. This isn't callousness, it's clarity. You've learned to distinguish between voices worth hearing and background static that deserves only silence. Chapter 4. The Temple. Do you hear the whimpering from the corners of the internet where omegas cry? Why must she demand so much? Or MGTO, do you rage about the unfair expectations of women? They cry about women's physical standards, lamenting how unfair it is that appearance matters. Why do they demand so much? They ask, clutching their soft bellies and wondering why nobody fears or respects a man who's given up on his own body. You understand what they refuse to accept. Nobody will fear or respect a guy with a dad bod or an unhealthy, round face. Reality doesn't negotiate with feelings. While Sigmas focus primarily on earning respect through competence and mystery, you've recognized a harder truth. Respect without the capacity for intimidation is just politeness. You cultivate both, understanding that true influence requires people to believe you could be dangerous if necessary, even if you choose restraint. Your approach to physical optimization isn't about looking pretty for Instagram. It's about becoming someone who commands space simply by entering it. When you walk into a room with broad shoulders, a strong jaw, and the controlled movement of someone who knows their physical capabilities, you're not just present, you're felt. This is where you overlap with alphas, but the difference is crucial. The alpha builds his body to display dominance, like a peacock spreading its feathers. You build yours as a functional weapon that rarely needs unsheathing. The alpha's physique screams, "Look at me." Yours whispers, "Don't test me." High performance, drive. This isn't about Sigma-like quiet competence, earning polite nods. It's about forging a weapon of terrifying efficiency. You push your body past limits, not just for health, but to know the depths of your endurance, the explosive power you can unleash. They sharpen their mind not for puzzles, but for decisive, ruthless clarity when pressure mounts. Research on physical attractiveness and social influence consistently shows that people attribute more competence, leadership ability, and trustworthiness to physically imposing individuals. This isn't fair, but fairness is a luxury for those who can afford to ignore reality. You can't. Yes, you share the alpha's understanding that presence commands. You know respect alone is paper. Back it with the capability for controlled force, and it becomes steel. But where the alpha is the roaring bear, terrifying but predictable. You are the silent panther. Crowd retreats from this truth, choosing to declare the game rigged rather than learning to play it effectively. They've convinced themselves that withdrawal equals wisdom, when it's often just elaborate self-deception. You've chosen the harder path, accepting that physical presence matters. Your body becomes a silent argument that precedes every conversation. People respect what they fear losing to, and fear what could overpower them. You've built both. Chapter 5. The Master's Paradox. Have you ever noticed how the fisherman who understands the ocean never needs to chase the fish? You've cracked the code that confounds most men, understanding women without becoming enslaved to them, while Omegas fear female nature and MGTs flee from it entirely, while Alphas exhaust themselves trying to dominate it and Sigmas remain mysteriously aloof. You've achieved something more sophisticated. You see the patterns, predict the responses, navigate the dynamics, all while maintaining your extreme independence. Let me clarify it. We Zetas make women utterly dependent on us. We make them chase us, crave us, then show indifference. Is that the right thing to do? Of course not. It's manipulation. But we do it anyway. We've already established Zetas as borderline devil archetype. There is also videos on Zeta shadows. You can watch them after this one. Maybe you've noticed we don't glorify Zeta's toxicity here, cause we don't want you to be like me. Let's get back in the video. The key lies in observation, without attachment. You study female psychology the way a meteorologist studies weather patterns, not because you want to control the storm, but because you want to know when to take shelter and when to sail. This detached understanding gives you power that emotional investment would destroy. Consider how most men approach women. They either pedestalize them into goddesses who can do no wrong, or demonize them into enemies who can do no right. Both extremes stem from the same source: emotional dependency on female validation. You've found the middle path, seeing women as normal humans, mere mates on the earth, with predictable behavioral patterns. Neither angels nor demons, just people operating within their biological and social programming. Your understanding runs deeper than pickup artist techniques or relationship manipulation. You recognize that female attraction isn't random or mysterious. It follows evolutionary patterns that haven't changed, despite cultural shifts. Women are drawn to status, strength, and selective attention because these traits historically indicated survival value. You provide these elements naturally, without pretense or performance. Here's where you differ from the compulsive alpha or passive omega. Your understanding doesn't breed hatred, contempt, or exploitation. It breeds strategic indifference. You're not just a monk, you're far worse, a monk-shaped tyrant. You know what women want. You can provide it when you choose to, but their approval isn't your primary goal. This creates the paradox that drives them closer while keeping you free. The weakness in this approach is its very strength. Your detached understanding can sometimes make you too clinical, missing the genuine connection that requires vulnerability. Some women sense your analytical distance and feel like specimens under observation rather than humans being experienced. You've mastered the art of being wanted without being needy, understood without being transparent. Chapter 6. The Hierarchy of Rejection. What separates the man who chooses solitude from the man who surrenders to it? In the landscape of male rejection of traditional female dynamics, three distinct territories emerge. Each represents a different relationship with power, fear, and choice. Understanding these differences reveals why your position as a Zeta places you at the apex of this hierarchy. The MGTO movement operates from a foundation of fear disguised as philosophy. They've been wounded by female rejection, manipulation, or the legal system, and their withdrawal represents retreat rather than strategy. Their rejection of women stems from self-preservation, a defensive posture that admits defeat while claiming victory. They fear what women might demand, what they might take, what power they might wield. Omegas occupy the lowest rung of this hierarchy, not through choice, but through circumstance. In social pressure or expectations, they can compromise their stated preferences. Their rejection, though, lacks conviction because it lacks power. You operate from an entirely different paradigm. Your rejection of female dependency doesn't stem from fear or inadequacy. It emerges from abundance. You don't need women for validation, emotional regulation, or social status. This fundamental difference creates a rejection that's both selective and powerful. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who understood powerlessness intimately, taught that freedom comes from wanting what you have rather than having what you want. You can engage when it serves your purposes, withdraw when it doesn't, and remain unaffected by either choice. Your rejection carries weight because it comes from strength rather than weakness. When you choose solitude, it's strategic. When you engage, it's selective. When you walk away, it's decisive. This creates a psychological dynamic that both confuses and attracts women who are accustomed to male desperation or bitter withdrawal. You've discovered that the ultimate power in any dynamic is the power to say no and mean it. This isn't about avoiding women, it's about engaging life on your terms.